everyone, and welcome to First Things First. I'm Jenna Wolf. Very dapper Hall of Famer Chris Carter. Very dapper Nick Wright. How's everybody doing today?
You look wonderful as well, Jenna.
Wasn't fishing, but thank you.
I like it.
Wasn't fishing.
What a fun night last night was. What I see. Let's go, Jenna.
Oh.
You ready? Bap, bap. Let's do
I'm getting very good at the dap. I am now walking down the street and randomly dapping folk.
I feel terrible.
That's what I'm like, dap
me. You got
me.
a tremendous influence on you, Jenna.
You really
Tremendous.
have, in so many ways. One of which was the fact that I stayed up way past my bedtime because second to the holidays, the draft is actually my favorite time of the year.
Oh.
I absolutely love it. I love watching when the calls come in, usually from the team owner or general manager.
Mm-hmm.
I love watching these kids get emotional. I love the families erupting.
It's great.
I love the expression on their face. I love what we talked about yesterday, the outfits they picked out, all of it.
Yes.
It makes me so
It's a
happy.
special night. It's a special night. It's almost like a sports holiday.
Yeah,
No doubt about
that's
it.
what it was.
Absolutely.
All right, so let's start right there. With the first pick in the 2018 NFL Draft, the Cleveland Browns select, and a very pregnant pause, just long and dramatic enough for Browns fans to pray that this will, in fact, turn their luck around. So the Browns select Baker Mayfield. And we're going to talk about Baker in a second. At number 2, the Giants took Saquon Barkley. At 3, the Jets grabbed Sam Darnold. Couldn't believe their luck. Ohio State cornerback Denzel Ward went to the Browns at 4, again with their second pick. And Bradley Chubb went to the Broncos to round out their top 5. A bunch of surprises just within those 5 that not many predicted. But let's get back to Baker Mayfield. CeCe, what do you think? We've been talking about this for weeks. Did the Browns finally get it right by selecting Baker Mayfield first overall?
I believe the Browns did get it right. And it's not only because of the talent that I believe Baker has, it's also his personality. There's some other things that I think that will come out in trying to evaluate this player. Some people from Cleveland, they thought he had a photographic memory. They thought his ability to be able to remember things beyond even just the normal intellect that other players will have. He also has that little edge to him. If you look at their coaching staff, and I think it's very important, Hugh has developed a lot of good offensive players. Now, because he's been in Cleveland, he's not going to get credit for that. But Todd Haley, he's gotten credit from around the league, developing players. Also, a player who has the type of personality of Baker Mayfield. I believe it's a perfect match for someone like Todd Haley. People wondered, man, how is Ben Roethlisberger going to do after Bruce Arians leaves? They get Todd Haley, and they might not have been in love with each other, but the overall productivity that Ben got a lot better as a quarterback with Todd. I believe you'll see some of those results in Cleveland. He is the leader, and he has the type of personality, I believe, to take over a franchise and take over a city like Cleveland.
And as far as the Todd Haley personality as the new offensive coordinator in Cleveland, I know Todd better than I know any coordinator in the league. Todd will get along with Baker Mayfield. Todd will not be bothered by some of the bravado that might have scared some other teams off. Todd has a lot of that bravado himself. I told you guys the silly story that Hugh Jackson relayed about Baker Mayfield walking into the room.
It wasn't that silly.
Saying hee, and then all of his teammates making that same sound, and how Hugh found that inspiring. The moment they select Baker Mayfield, the Browns' official Twitter account tweets out, hee. So it resonated throughout, for some reason or another, throughout the organization. I will give the Browns credit for this. I wouldn't have had the courage to make this pick. If I'm Cleveland, if I'm new GM John Dorsey, if I'm a team that has become the punchline of the league because I have whiffed on quarterbacks, sometimes because I've gone with the prototype in Tim Couch, sometimes because I've gone with the high upside guy in Johnny Manziel, if I would have gone with the safest guy. I think the safest guy was one of the 2 quarterbacks from Southern California, most likely Sam Darnold. They went with a guy who they think can be the best. And I'll add one other piece to this that I wasn't doing the math on until recently. We talk a lot about transitions from your starter to your backup, one guy grooming another guy. Tyrod Taylor's style of football is not terribly dissimilar to Baker Mayfield's. Baker is a more talented player, but when we are talking about if you are going to have an offense built around the guy who you signed to come in and start this year, theoretically Tyrod, but hope Baker takes over maybe at some point in the year, you're not going to have to drastically change the offense the way, for example, the Texans did when they go from Tom Savage to Deshaun Watson. Tyrod and Baker share some similarity skill set.
One thing, though, that you didn't calculate was John Dorsey hadn't picked no bad quarterbacks. So he's new at it. Not new at being a general manager, but he's new to Cleveland. So he doesn't have that past buyer's remorse that maybe someone else in the organization that's been there longer, the owner there.
So he could be influenced by past picks, which is great.
And he went with the best guy. You know that because he has the top pick. He doesn't have to make any excuses, and he's the only general manager that had the pick of all the players. So everyone else would be like, yeah, I got the guy that I wanted. Yeah. But the only one that we know to be true is John Dorsey because he had the first pick.
We know they have Tyrod Taylor. We understand that the way the game plan is probably going to work is Tyrod will come in and start a couple weeks. Maybe like what Chicago did last year with Trubisky, he comes in Is there any scenario whereby which he could impress this team enough where Baker Mayfield starts for the Cleveland Browns this coming season?
Absolutely. 100% chance.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely. Anyone that had one of these 5 quarterbacks selected, if you struggle, they will be in the game. And you can go from the top of the list of Baker Mayfield to number 32 with Lamar Jackson. I believe that all these guys in the new NFL, the future is right now. So, yes, they will say all the right things. Yes, I don't want these guys to play, but all 5 of them are in situations that I believe that they will see the field in some capacity their rookie year.
And if you're good enough, even if you're not the first overall pick, we saw Russell Wilson go from 3rd overall pick to starting week 1. I would imagine of these 5 quarterbacks taken, 1 or 2 of them will start week 1 of this season, and I would imagine 4, if not all 5, will start at some point this season.
Okay, so moving a little further down, you have 4 quarterbacks that went in the top 10. It's unprecedented, and it's very impressive, and it says a lot about the quarterback class coming out this year. Which of these 4 guys, and you can include Lamar Jackson if you will, who was in the first round, which of these guys do you think is best set up from their perspective and from the team's perspective to succeed this year?
I think they're very unique situations, all 5 of them. I'll go to number 32 as far as Lamar Jackson. Ozzie Newsome, the great general manager, that's his last first-round pick. He trades back up into the first round and gets Lamar. I believe that's a great transition into the future. I believe it's a good situation for him where he does not have to play right now. Joe Flacco is the starter, but in 2018 is the last year that Joe Flacco has any money that's guaranteed.
Yep.
So I think that that's a great transition for Lamar there. The best situation to me is Josh Rosen. And communicating with the general manager of Arizona Cardinals, Steve Keim, last night, and knowing that they knew exactly what they got. They got the best pure passer in the draft. He has no mechanical flaws that they have to change. He's a 3-year starter, so they like that fact. He's a 2-year captain. They like that. And his intellect and his overall curiosity, they thought that to be an asset. They also, you can make the comparison a lot like Larry Fitzgerald. He's a very inquisitive person. He's a very worldly person. He travels around the world. He's always asking questions, even from a football standpoint. So there are some similarities to some of the players that they have there. And sitting behind Sam Bradford, one of the best passers in the NFL as far as accuracy. Also, Sam's a great locker room guy. They got great chemistry there in Arizona. Josh Rosen, to me, is set up to be the best.
And Rosen doesn't have to worry about one of your concerns with him, which is, can he play in the cold? You're in a division where
he's very fortunate to be able to stay on the West Coast.
Staying on the West Coast. You're
playing inside.
10 games at a minimum every year via your division and your home games that are either indoors or in warm weather. So I agree with everything you said about Josh Rosen. I want to talk about the other Southern California quarterback for a moment, Sam Darnold. I don't know if you can say anybody that gets picked as quarterback for the Jets, they are best positioned from their own career standpoint. But I will say this about the Jets. The Jets fans went into this past football season rooting for close losses because they wanted the number 1 overall pick to take Sam Darnold. They ended up winning enough. They got the number 6 overall pick. They made what now looks like a very shrewd trade to move up
Only
to number...
now.
Yep. Now it looks like a very shrewd trade to move up to number 3
to get the guy they
take the guy that I believe they would have taken at number 1 overall. So if you're a Jets fan, you went into you finished the season with the 6th overall pick, Jenna, and you got the guy you would have taken number 1 overall.
And the Jets have in Josh McCown, one of the very, very smart, one of the great guys. You're talking about a great backup for a young player who's not going to be intimidated. A guy who's going to be invited in. Josh is going to show him everything about the NFL, everything about the Jets organization. It's not as if he has some ego. So it's a great place for a young quarterback to be in, a guy that's been in the league over 15 years. It's a great transition. I believe Josh's leadership will help Sam there.
All right, we got 3 hours to talk about the draft with people coming on to help us, even though we're perfectly fine doing it ourselves. We just wanted to share the love. Coming up, let's get back into it. Did the Giants make the right move drafting Saquon? That's next on First Things First. All right, moving on. With the 2nd overall pick in the 2018 NFL Draft, the New York Giants select Penn State running back sensation Saquon Barkley, which means a couple things. 1, they really liked him. 2, they'll now have a running game for the first time since Thunder and Lightning starred for Big Blue. And 3, Eli's your guy now for the foreseeable future, Giants fans. CC, what do you think? Did the Giants make the right call selecting Saquon with that 2nd pick?
The Giants did do the right thing. And Dave Gettleman, he's been fairly honest as far as the whole process. He looked at Eli as he had some type of time left in him. He didn't look at this was a make-or-break year for Eli. In the year where there was going to be 5 quarterbacks available that had a first-round grade on them, the Giants had decided that they're going to try to get a couple years out of Eli. Also, their backup, who they spent the 3rd-round pick on. They feel like he has some type of football future. Don't know if he is the franchise answer, but right now, with Odell Beckham, with Ingram, the tight end, with Sterling Shepard, you have to try to get another weapon. And they got the best player in the draft, the cleanest one. Clean, what does that mean? The guy who has no marks against him, being athletically, personality, size, strength. You're talking about a 6-foot running back who can run through the tackles, is also a special teams player, and also can make an immediate impact out of the backfield. The Giants got the best player in the draft.
I think the Giants may have gotten the best player in the draft. That doesn't mean they made the right call here. And I say that only because if there are any quarterbacks that hit other than Baker Mayfield, when we look back on this draft, we will say, well, that would have been the better pick. Like, that is...
That's if he's not great.
That's even if he is great.
No, I believe you have to... The draft is about real time. And what's real time in the NFL? The future's right now. Like, if the Giants, if they're going to win... If we take away the injuries from this season, we thought the Giants were a 10-win team last year. We didn't think Eli would have a horrific year. We thought he'd have a decent... Even if he was the middle of the pack.
Right.
And then if they wouldn't be in this selection, but then if they went out and got a running back, which Eli has not had the support, then you would be like, wow, what kind of position? You have to do what's right for the Giants. They think they have a chance to win in the next couple years, and if they believe that, you have to go with the running back right now.
Well, they better win at a very high level in the next couple years, unless none of the other quarterbacks are good to justify this. Because when you say if he's not good, we can just go draft by draft over the last few years, and we don't have to go through all of them. I'll pick, how about 2014? The 2014 draft, non-quarterbacks, has Aaron Donald, Odell Beckham Jr., Khalil Mack, 3 guys who are superstars in this league. But knowing what we know now, if you went back and did that draft again, Jimmy Garoppolo and Derek Carr go 1-2 or 2-1. Why? Because they're franchise-level quarterbacks in the eyes of people. We can go to a draft that was one of the greatest drafts ever, the 2011 draft. J.J. Watt, Von Miller, Julio Jones.
Great draft.
Guys, J.J.'s going to be a Hall of Famer. Julio's tracking towards it. Von's tracking towards it. If you went and did that again, Cam still goes number 1 because of the value of the quarterback. Cam's not tracking to be a Hall of Famer right now, but the value of the quarterback. And so I think you can pick the best player, but if you have an opportunity to take a quarterback and you don't, I went into it saying their best option was to take their favorite quarterback. Their second best option was to trade the pick. Dave Gettleman said people were just offering me popcorn and hot dogs for the number 2 pick. I wasn't doing it. So like that's the rub. I understand why Giants fans be excited because for this year, he of course is the guy that can help them the most.
Would it be safe to say then the Giants went with the safe pick? He was the safe pick. Most likely, the running back is going to have a fairly, as you say, seamless transition from college to the pros. Probably have a decent year. We don't know if it's a Zeke-type year, but he'll have a great year. But you don't know of those 4 quarterbacks going in the top 10. You say 1, maybe 2 of them will be busts. It's hard to know.
Well, this is the thing. He has such a high rating on him that even Le'Veon Bell, he was a lot higher rating than him. He's as high or higher than Ezekiel Elliott. So you're talking about he's probably got one of the top 3 running back ratings that we've had coming to the NFL in the last 20 years. And if the quarterback, if you're not going to play him right now, which the Giants weren't going to do, because all these other quarterbacks that were drafted, it speeds up the clock. And all those other places don't have a 2-time Super Bowl champion. So you have to consider in real time. Everyone could look at the draft. If I could do the draft over, we wouldn't make no misses. NBA draft,
right,
NFL draft, tomorrow, of course we would do that. But it's in real time. And you have a 2-time Super Bowl champion that you believe has football in him. You need to get the best player. And that's what they did with Barkley.
And that the football left in Eli is the other key here. Right. They have to be right that Eli can be a very productive player for the next 2 or 3, hopefully for them even 4 years, because you also have to take into the context of the conference. And there are 16 teams in the NFC. There are 15 teams that have younger quarterbacks who they believe are franchise quarterbacks. You can make the argument today that every team, as far as long-term optimism in the NFC, every team feels better positioned long-term than the Giants. So the only reason you're okay with that is if you think in the short term, we're going to go bust people in their head. We got Evan Ingram. We got Sterling Shepard. OBJ's coming back. We just added the highest-rated running back to come into the league in, what, a decade potentially?
You have a guy that's going to
Peterson?
protect you. You have Nate Solder in your lineup as well. But you also have to assume that the reason Eli didn't play as well last year or lost a step is maybe because Odell wasn't in the lineup. So
there is no maybe. Absolutely. Him,
okay,
Brandon Marshall, the rest of, that team was decimated. The lack of a left tackle, the lack of protection. There's no quarterback in the NFL that could have played well under Eli's circumstances. I like what the Giants are doing and the fact that you can't put an equation on this. How long do you stay with the guy who wins you 2 freaking Super Bowls? And that's the dilemma that the Giants have. It's not a dilemma that Nick likes, but it is the reality. I put 2 of them Lombardi trophies in that trophy case, so they're going to give me some time to potentially maybe play a year longer than past my prime, maybe a year longer than other organizations because of they don't have the history with a quarterback like Eli.
But, Nick, the question is this the year past his prime, or is this just the year because he didn't have Odell last year?
Right, and so we'll see. We'll see about it. I totally agree with Chris that he was in an impossible situation last year. I also think you saw some of the writing on the wall for Eli as far back as 4 years ago, or I guess 5 years ago, right before they got Odell. If you're a Giants fan, though, I'm not trying to rain on the parade for 2018. For this season and potentially next season, you gave yourself the best chance to compete for a championship. But if you top out the rest of Eli's era at 10 wins and a first-round playoff exit, then I think you look back and say, damn, could have had Darnold there and then Darius Geis, who's maybe 80% of Saquon at the top of the second round. You don't
know if he's going to be there, though. You're playing everything after the fact. It's so much easier to do this after the fact. If the Giants knew that Geis was going to be there at the beginning of the second round, yeah, of course. It was like, hey, what's going to happen tomorrow? We don't know. And that's why the draft, it's not a science. Mel Kiper, he's going to miss. Todd McShay, he's going to miss.
Right.
Our boy, Joel Klatt, he's going to miss. That's what happens with the draft. That's why you tune in. At least half of the first-round picks, they will be bust.
That's why it's my favorite time of year. Hey, coming up, Josh Rosen has some harsh words for the teams that passed on him. This you will not want to miss. Wait to hear what he has to say. Hear it from him next on First Things First. First things first, we're going viral. Last night, Baker Mayfield was taken first overall.
Had to get one of them deliciousness in his system.
Browns. Can't step away for 1 second. Must keep watching. Fans got the opportunity to see the curtain peeled back. Here's the Browns GM, John Dorsey, and head coach Hugh Jackson calling Baker Mayfield.
Baker. Mr. Dorsey, how are you? I'm doing pretty good, thank you. Hey, let me ask you a question. I got you on speakerphone here. You want to be the first pick in the draft?
Yeah, I do.
Huh?
Yeah, I do.
Well, buddy boy, I want you to get excited here because I'm I'm going to put the card in here, and we're going to take you here with the first pick in the draft. I got to go back in the draft room here. I got the head coach want to talk to you, brother. I'm so excited for you, and I can't wait to see you tomorrow. But here's the head coach, brother.
Sir.
Hey, Baker, how you doing, buddy? Hey, congratulations. No crying. It's exciting time for you and your family. We're all excited you're a Cleveland Brown. Looking forward to working with you. And, again, it's going to be a great time.
That is fantastic. There are only a few things that give me the chills, honestly.
You got them right
I
there.
got the chills when you get the call. I get the chills when the national anthem. Sometimes when you're at a game and you're there and everyone stands up to you. There are certain times. But when you get that phone call and you watch these kids and it brings them to tears, it literally brings me chills.
Baker's moment, like Baker's side of this, because he was Facebook live streaming this
Yes.
or Instagram living it.
Instagram it, yeah.
And so he's in the room with his family. Everyone gets quiet when he gets on the phone. And then he just puts his hands up in celebration, and everyone goes crazy. It was so cool.
It's a dynamic moment. That phone call that day, it's a one that you'll never forget. I was in the supplemental draft, so I didn't have a draft day like this. So I was in my agent's office in Boston. Gil Brandt, the great scout from the Dallas Cowboys, called me and was like, Chris Carter, do you want to be a Dallas Cowboy? I was like, yeah, absolutely. I grew up wanting to be a Dallas Cowboy. Absolutely. Philadelphia called me next. Buddy Ryan said, you're a Philadelphia Eagle.
Yeah. Awesome. I grew up being a Philadelphia Eagle fan. I love
No, I was like, yeah, I'm cool with it. But and then every time I see Gil Brandt, even to this day, I'm like, hey, Gil, thanks for not taking me.
Thanks for
I
nothing,
never knew
Gil.
that part of the story. I didn't know that. I knew you thought you might go to the Cowboys. I didn't know they called you.
Yeah, Gil Brandt called me.
Oh,
Yeah.
I never knew that part of the story.
Yeah, but they passed on me. The Eagles took me.
If I just real quick, similar thing happened when you were going to the Vikings. You almost went to the Giants.
Oh, yeah, Bill Parcells
called
yeah,
it.
he didn't even say hello.
Right, said we're going to put in a claim.
Yeah, how long is it going to take you to get up here? I
Right.
was like, I'm right down the turnpike, coach. It'll take me about an hour. That's one of the reasons why him and I are still best friends to this day.
That's amazing. Two different moments like that. That's
Really, really
cool.
great. We're going to have that, by the way, the Baker Mayfield Snapchat call. We're going to have that a little bit later
And it's
in the
okay
show.
when they
So we're
call you
gonna
to
show
cry,
everybody.
too. Don't listen to the coaches. Man, you got to cry.
Time for some stories to start your morning. Last night, the Bucks defeated the Celtics 97-86, forcing a Game 7 on Saturday. Giannis led the way for Milwaukee with 31 points. Nick, did you think this series would go 7 games?
Well, I mean, if you check my first-round predictions, which right now look almost impeccable, I had Bucks in 7. So, yeah, I thought this would go 7 games. I also thought Giannis would step up last night in the biggest game of his career to date, and he did, leading them in points, leading them in rebounds, leading the starters in assists, leading everyone in blocks. He did everything for him last night, and, I mean, he did what he had to do as one of the 7 best players in the sport.
He definitely was far more aggressive. But as a team, they played so much better. Getting up and down the court, they're so much more athletic than the Boston Celtics, so they utilized that. Fast break points, I think they had the edge 34-16. But it's interesting what Nick just did there. He did a LeBron thing. I pat myself on the back. Hey, my playoff predictions, they're impeccable.
Hold up.
Check them out. They're impeccable.
Can I draw one distinction? LeBron, one of the reasons him patting himself on the back can be a little annoying some is he has a lot of reason to do it. I've gotten a long string of predictions wrong recently, so if I might go 7 for 8 perfect in the first round as far as games and everything, I'm going to let the people
Jenna,
know.
there's a part about television that he has not gotten from me yet. Nick being right is very important. He's like, no, it's about just saying.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
No, it's about being right.
So if I'm going to be right, I got to let the audience
Now
know.
is a good time to start.
Okay, there we go.
Show what? 168?
169.
But who's counting? You are. On to the NFL draft. The Buffalo Bills traded up with the Tampa Bay Bucks to the number 7 slot to grab Josh Allen out of Wyoming. Allen is the highest selected quarterback in Buffalo Bills history. CeCe, what do you think about the Bills' decision to take Allen?
I like his talent. I believe he can be a good pro, but I believe that they're system players. 99% of us are system players. I do not believe this is the right system for him, even though McDermott, who's the coach there, he was with Cam Newton, and that's what they see, the throwing ability of a Cam Newton, absent of the physical skills to be able to run the football, but he is also going into the locker room, the quarterback room that has the most stress. A.J. McCarron believes he's a starter. This is his first time getting the opportunity to start. He is not looking to teach a guy or to help a guy make the transition to being a franchise quarterback. So not only does he have the most from a skill set besides Lamar to learn, what's going on in the quarterback room, I believe, will prevent him from growing as fast as the other players.
And not great wide receivers to help him out there either. And if now I do understand you need a guy in Buffalo, wind, snow, rain, big hands, arm strength helps there as much as any city in the country. I get that part of it. But if I'm going to take the Cam Newton comparison a step further, how good of a quarterback is Cam Newton if you remove the running stuff? If you remove Cam's abilities,
that's what we've been telling you.
Right, but I've always said with Cam, you can't remove the running because that's such an important part of his game. If Josh Allen is Cam Newton who can't run,
you got problems.
He needs time to develop. He needs time to develop.
Yes.
All right, DJ Moore from the University of Maryland will be joining forces with Cam Newton. Calvin Ridley will be joining Julio Jones and the Falcons. These two were the only two receivers drafted in the first round this year, the fewest since 2010. CC, what do these guys need to do at this point now to be successful at the next level?
Well, the two different issues here. DJ Moore, good receiver from the University of Maryland, has great running skills with the football. He's like a faster Anquan Bolden. Steve Smith talked about it last night. They finally have his replacement in Carolina. Now, it's like a good basketball team. All right, they drafted Curtis Samuels. He's a better receiver than Curtis Samuels. They're trying to turn him from Curtis Samuels into a running back to a receiver. So now with the arsenal they have, he has the skill set, especially with his speed. Now, as far as Ridley is concerned, going with Julio Jones, they like Alabama players in Atlanta. It's just right over from him, a 3-hour commute from Tuscaloosa. He's played in that stadium a number of times. Their passing attack will be enhanced by Ridley's overall receiving skills. But being next to Julio Jones, what an asset it is for Calvin Ridley.
Listen, it's the same thing as when we were going to talk about Bradley Chubb getting to play across from Von Miller, where Von Miller's going to get the double teams. Like, if you are playing on a team with one of the two best receivers in the league, you're never going to be
a top-flight quarterback.
Right. You're never going to be the focus of the opponent's game plan, at least not early on. If I'm Calvin Ridley, I'm thrilled with this. And if you're the Falcons, you said when we went to the Super Bowl, we had options all over the field to beat you. It wasn't just Julio. They're trying to bring some of that back.
All right, North Carolina State defensive end Bradley Chubb was drafted 5th overall by John Elway and the Broncos, who many thought were going to try to trade up and get a quarterback. Von Miller was super excited about his new teammate yesterday. Nick, how will Chubb fit in with the Broncos?
I'll answer that in a moment. First, I would like to congratulate Jenna Wolf, because her guy, Case Keenum, doesn't have no competition this year.
Finally!
He gets to be a quarterback and a quarterback alone. He's not battling with Josh Rosen, Josh Allen, Lamar, nobody. So in that regard, I know when this pick came down, I was like, good for Jenna. As far as the Broncos, they're saying, I heard Mike Mayock say this on television last night. I thought it was interesting. Can Case Keenum be as good as Peyton Manning was his final year in Denver?
He's a better thrower of the football than that last year.
Now, Peyton had a lot pre-snap he could still do with his mind, essentially. But the way they won their Super Bowl was best defense in the league. So go get the best defensive player in this draft, certainly the best pass rusher in this draft. I understand it. I thought it was great value at 5. I didn't think he'd be there.
Also interesting because Shane Ray was a first-round pick 4 years ago. They have to exercise his 5th-year option if they're going to be able to keep him beyond this year. But it lets you know, Denver realizes that if you go through the quarterback, that's your way to the Super Bowl. I love this pairing, even stronger than Ridley with Julio Jones, because there's only one football. It helps out a young receiver, but nothing helps out a young pass rusher better than having a superstar who demands a double team on the other side. So I wouldn't be surprised if Bradley Chubb is Defensive Rookie of the Year.
And keep in mind, both Josh Allen and Josh Rosen were available to the Broncos, and they ended up going with Bradley Chubb.
Yep.
Of course, we've got the Patriots. They addressed offseason losses with both of their draft picks. Nate Solder will be replaced by Isaiah Wynn. Sony Michel will be replaced by Dion Lewis. CeCe, what do you make of the Patriots' round 1 moves?
The Patriots got some good players, but also you have to kind of bake into what they're going to do with them. Their offensive line, Isaiah Wynn, he's not the prototype left tackle. He's not the prototype lineman. But because they have one of the best offensive line coaches, they realize, wow, I'll take him. We believe that we can coach him up. I believe that's a huge part to being in the NFL. These organizations that believe in their coaching staff that they can get the best. And that's what you're seeing there with New England. Sony Michel, I've been knowing Sony Michel since he was 13 years old. He's from South Florida. Phenomenal athlete growing up, tremendous speed, track star growing up. He has the kind of body that when he was a younger kid and he shows up to the football field, the parents are like, please check his birth certificate. Well developed as a young person. He is a better player than Dion Lewis. He can run between the tackles. He can also get out of the backfield. I would say he is a lot like Alvin Kamara, but not as good as a receiver as Kamara. So they look to utilize him better. He was a backup at Georgia, like Kamara was at Tennessee. They look to utilize him as a starter, especially on third down, getting him in mismatches coming out of that backfield.
Just quickly here from me. I think Wynn is interesting because most people projected him as a guard at the pro level. The Patriots are going to use him theoretically as their left tackle. But this is what the Patriots do. Nate Solder, here's how much money we're going to give you. Oh, the Giants are going to give you more? No problem. We'll replace you in the draft. Dion Lewis, here's how much money we're going to give you. Oh, you're going to go get more elsewhere? No problem. We're going to get a guy we think can be better than you in Sony Michel. Like
smart draft move. That's how you
smart.
work the
Like
draft.
I mean, this is why the Patriots have been the Patriots. In addition to the Brady portion of it for the last 15 years. Like they won't overpay. They will use their draft picks on the best player available at a position of need. A combination of those two.
And it speaks to your theory that they wouldn't package these two picks and try to move up to get a quarterback because now they have two potential starters, compared to having someone sit behind Tom Brady for the next couple of years. Their future is right now.
And one last thing, just a little mutual admiration society here, speaks to your point that the idea they were ever interested in Lamar Jackson was nonsense.
They had Lamar Jackson. They could have taken Lamar Jackson twice.
They passed on him twice.
Yep.
So, like, that's not an indictment on Lamar, but it just speaks to...
But it is an indictment on reporters.
Someone called me yesterday and asked me, what about Lamar and him slipping to New England? I said, if New England, Bill Belichick, if they were the nation's #1 sniper and you could put out a hit on someone else, do you think you would know who they had a hit on? You're like, no. So those reports coming out of New England, they're just smoke, just bogus stuff. Yeah, so Lamar got to a place where someone who really wanted him.
No, you're right. They passed on him twice. All right, with the 10th pick in the 2018 NFL Draft, the Arizona Cardinals have traded up to select quarterback Josh Rosen. Some had him going first or second or third. He went 10th. Or in other words, 9 teams passed on the talented, outspoken signal caller from UCLA. True to his personality, Josh Rosen had some strong words for the teams who didn't take him. Take a listen.
I was pretty pissed off. I fell. 1, 2, and 3 went by, and just kind of went into a blur after that. I was really angry. Teams were passing on me, and I was honestly expecting to get picked at some point and have to fake a smile and go up and pretend to be happy. But for some reason, when I got picked, all of that went away, and it just went to straight excitement and relief. There were 9 mistakes made ahead of me, and I will make sure over the next decade or so that they will know that they made a mistake.
I want so much to really like Josh Rosen. I do. I know how talented he is. And then he says stuff like that, and it just rubs me the wrong way. CC, what did you make of Josh Rosen's comments?
It's real. It's real. You get upset. People tell you things. Also, people had him thinking he was going to be in the top 3. He started believing that, and you could tell it had an effect on him. This is probably, besides his birth, the biggest day of his life. So I don't expect kids who have never been in this type of spotlight to be able to handle the press conference properly. He was upset, but he's very fortunate. He's in a place that was the best fit for him. He's not better fitted than Baker Mayfield to go to Cleveland. He's not better fitted. You want to go to the Giants and sit behind Eli Manning? Does that make you healthy? I mean, does that make you happy? Or is it just your ego and your pride just saying, I want to be one of the top guys? No, he wasn't. He got drafted right where he is. Draft is only lane assignments. You still have to run the race. So he shouldn't be consumed with that. All you need to be consumed with, what does Arizona want me to do? I know that Steve Kyman, communicating with him last night, they love him. They love his intellect. They have a lot of smart players already in that locker room, so they don't feel challenged by his overall personality. But Josh needs to realize this is the NFL. It's totally different than anything he's ever experienced. And trying to think that he knows about the NFL, you can't go around every day making people regret not picking you. It's not a real motivation. You need to try to get better, try to make contributions to the Arizona Cardinals, and not worry about the teams that passed on you, because every team, every person can kind of play that chip besides Baker Mayfield.
I mean, and we talked about this at the top of the show. This was a perfect fit for him. This is a better fit than either of the New York teams, either because you're sitting behind Eli or because the Jets have just not proven to be a well-run franchise, not to mention the weather and the elements you'd have to play in compared to Arizona. But as far as the comments go, what I thought was interesting is right after he got drafted, Deion interviews him. And he clearly wanted to say some of these things. And he was able to say, I'm just super excited. I'm so happy. And about 10, 20 minutes later, he can't control himself anymore. This is who he's going to be. And it is putting a bigger target on his back for media members, I believe. I don't know about other players in the league, but as far as the media wanting
the players
to,
in the league don't care.
Right. But as far as the narrative surrounding him, there are going to be people he's rubbed the wrong way, so they will look for reasons to tear him down. But this also could be the beginning of a great story. Like Josh Rosen, if he ends up being right, if he ends up proving out to be as good as he believes he is, then there's no problem with it. Like I always prefer, and this is one of the places you and I differ, I prefer honest arrogance to false humility. I want to know who you really are. And Josh Rosen, more than any player I can remember being drafted in recent memory, has shown us who he really is. So I'm not going to knock a guy for that. And I happen to think if he can stay healthy, he is going to be the best quarterback.
I think in life we present a version that's acceptable to people, even yourself, Nick. No one wants to be blatantly honest in every aspect of their life. He's immature. He doesn't understand what the NFL is about, and eventually that he will get that understanding. A lot of kids, they make the same mistakes, but you don't know what you don't know. People watch the NFL on TV. Oh, I know what it's like to be an NFL player. I know what it's like to be interviewed. No, you don't. They don't know what it's like to be passed over in the draft. They don't know it. And he might be right about his future, but about what happened in the draft, he's not right about. Barkley was the best pick for the Giants. Some of these other picks were the right picks for those teams. Like, all these teams didn't need quarterbacks. So trying to take it out on all these other teams, there are bigger obstacles than you slipping to number 10 in the draft.
And two quick things. One, the self-control that you talked about, him not being able to control it with Deion, but letting it stew, and 10 minutes later he felt like he needed to say it. Those are some of the things that our analysts, that Mangini and those guys talked about, that these are the things he can't fully control and you hope he'll be able to do. And then number two, the other thing that puts him in a great position is, who's he competing against? Sam Bradford? Like, he's in a great position right now to just, for lack of a better term, shut up, prepare, practice, get ready to go, and be your starter when
And Sam will be
starts.
a great asset for him. Arizona, they told me last night they don't plan on him playing unless Sam gets hurt. But with Sam Darnold.
With Sam Bradford.
Yeah, Sam Bradford. But the chance of him getting hurt, real high.
Pretty good.
He's got the Kawhi Leonard of injuries. Hey, coming up, Jaguars star and Josh Rosen's UCLA teammate Miles Jack joins us in studio. It's next on First Things First. Welcome back to First Things First, favorite part of our show when we talk about football all the time because we love football, and then a football player joins us to talk even more football with us about football. Definitely best part of the show. Jaguars defense helped lead them all the way to the AFC title game last season. One key component to that unit was linebacker Miles Jack, who had 66 tackles on the year. Big ol' smile in so doing. He joins us now. Hey, Miles, how are you?
Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Yes, sir.
Miles, we are talking all morning, obviously, about the draft last night, and I opened up the show talking about just the excitement and the spirit of it and what it means, because after this, all you're going to talk about is football. But right before it happens, it's the excitement and the anxiety. And I'm sure you have a draft story. Everyone seems to. You're not that far removed from it. Talk to us a little bit about your draft experience.
Obviously, I didn't go where, I thought I was going to go. But at the end of the day, you go where you're supposed to go. And I think that's the hardest thing, those first 24 hours, 48 hours is, okay, I got drafted where I got drafted. And maybe you wanted to be a pick or two higher. So you just got to kind of accept your reality, and really the main thing is getting your foot in the door and getting a job. I think that's the biggest thing.
Wait, tell everyone why, because you were injured and then you started
Correct.
slipping. So explain to the audience
Correct.
why.
Yeah, so pretty much my story is apparently I was projected to go round one pretty high, and I had an injury in college, and then a whole lot of speculation came out about my knees and everything, and if I was able to play for longevity, and if it was worth all the money, and so I ended up slipping around too, and I've been playing ever since.
So you can relate to someone like Josh Rosen, someone you know from UCLA. Absolutely. Where you went, and he slipped to number 10.
Right.
What's the message, or give us something about Josh Rosen that you think potentially will lead to him being a great player, because you know him better than most of us.
Right. Obviously, you guys showed the segment where he wasn't too happy where he went. And I think the thing with Josh is he's a gamer, and I think it'll motivate him. Obviously, going top 10 isn't that bad. You know what I mean? So, that's not too bad. But I think it'll motivate him, and if that's what it takes to put a fire underneath him, I think it'll be a positive thing he can turn it into.
Your last year at UCLA was his first, and we're not going to spend a ton of time talking about him, but you mentioned when you were walking on, you have a great story about Josh. I didn't know if you can share it.
Just pretty much, man, Josh is just a kid. When he came on campus, that same confidence, that same demeanor that he showed on camera, I mean, that's who he is. That's Josh. He's going to tell you how he feels at that exact moment. He's not going to sugarcoat it, and I mean, he's blunt, so he's going to give you guys a lot of great content. So
yeah, he is.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So he'll be a great quarterback to follow in the NFL.
All right, so let's talk about the Jags for a second. You guys are one game away from the Super Bowl. When you look back on last year, do you look at it as a disappointment because you came a game shy, or do you look at it as a success because you got that far?
And that's the thing, obviously, after you lose a game, your emotions are high and everything. But looking back, how far we came, and just now that people are wearing Jags gear in public and people are screaming Duval when you walk out in public, I think we've given the city of Jacksonville pride. So
Duval happens to be Duval County, where Jacksonville is, there in northern part of Florida.
Yes, sir. So, yeah, man, we were 6 minutes away, and the biggest thing I took from that game is playing New England up in New England is the game's not over till it's over. And I think we just got to play all 48 minutes.
Right. If we go back to that New England game, because you mentioned it, what about that controversial play? Was it a fumble? Great athlete made a play. Give us some insight on what happened in that in real time.
In my perspective, I saw what was going on. Deion Lewis didn't see me coming behind, so I went for the strip. When I stripped it, I tried to kind of stay away from Deion and not get touched by him, let the ball roll on my chest, if you can kind of see it on the replay. And then I picked it up, and I was ready to go, but then I heard the whistle, and they called it down. We tried to get it back to our offense, and we didn't capitalize on it.
After finishing a season like that, a lot of people around the NFL, the Jags are on the radar now.
Right.
I mean, you guys got a swagger, you got some defensive stars.
Right.
You being one of those stars. How has that led you to a different type of preparation as you traveled around the league, seeing other players? How's that changed for you getting ready for the 2018 season compared to the couple seasons getting ready where people didn't know you?
Right. Now it's no secret. You know what I mean? People know our defense is real. People know we'll put our offense in situations where they can score. They know it's going to be a battle. So moving forward, we got to know that we're going to get teams' best games. Teams are going to look at us how we looked at New England. You know what I mean? Or any other Pittsburgh Steelers. They're going to get up for it. So we're not going to shock anybody next year at all.
You mentioned the Steelers. What do you think you guys had right about the Steelers that the rest of the league didn't? The Steelers were awesome all year against everyone but you guys. I mean, what do you think there was there?
Man, it's just a feeling that when we woke up that morning, man, it was just when you looked in guys' eyes in the locker room, we were ready to go. It was no doubt in our mind that we knew we were going to be in for a battle, and it was going to be a hell of a game, man, and that's what it turned out to be both times. And I think we just, on those specific days, we just wanted a little bit more than they did.
When people talk about Jacksonville, they dish out a lot of credit. One of my favorite coaches all time in the last 30 years around the NFL is Tom Coughlin.
Yes, sir.
Give me, what does Tom do on a daily basis, and some of the maybe tidbits of his influence on what's going on in Jacksonville now?
So on that clock, it says 7:28.
You late.
Mr. Coughlin's time, you got to subtract 5 minutes or add 5 minutes to that.
Yes.
So you got to be there 5 minutes early to every single meeting. So just
Hold on a second. Nick, did you get that?
I got it.
Right. I think I kind of explained it a little
No,
better.
you did.
but yeah.
Because he's
It's not
5
on me.
minutes
She
late.
likes to say I'm late to
okay.
everything.
Miles, every day he's 5 minutes late to our meeting.
Yeah, Mr. Coughlin would fine you. Max fine you.
Max fine
Max
you.
fine. No discussion is coming out of your paycheck. Yeah, try again next time. Yeah, definitely. But yeah, he's just very meticulous. The details, you got to be where you're supposed to be. If it's on the schedule, be there. If not, you're getting fined. And people tend to pay attention when their wallet gets hit. So. Definitely.
Having a little fun and keeping with it, I got to know how much trash talking Jalen Ramsey really does and how
Yeah.
good and does he practice? Does he stand in his locker room and practice trash talking at himself and then use it
he
out on
doesn't
the...
take it that far, but it's just fun hearing him on the back end when it's a run play or if it's an incomplete pass. Jalen's gonna let that receiver know that it's gonna be a long day.
Like what? I want to know. I'm never going to be out there.
I can't specifically say what he says, but
Man, you're garbage.
Right, exactly.
Man, you one of the worst dudes I ever guarded.
Exactly.
Are they paying you today?
Exactly.
Are you gonna give me some competition?
Exactly.
That's what Jalen's about.
Right.
Now, that swag, how real is that?
It's real. I think people see it from the TV screen. I think people can feel it. People talk about.
Now, you're a quiet guy.
Right.
How does it affect you? Because y'all got us.
Right.
When people think Calais Campbell, quiet guy, Miles Jack, quiet guy. How do you guys blend in with people like Jalen and some of the other personalities that you have?
Man, we got guys like Jalen, we got guys like Telvin who talk. So I get my little tidbits in every once in a while where I'll kind of throw my stuff in and
little
kinda
feisty
back
dog.
them up. Exactly. Malik Jackson, big talker with the offensive line.
Yes.
So, yeah, we got our three guys at each level to kind of talk, and then I'll kind of throw my little ad-libs in the end.
Are there times in games where you realize you guys have gotten to them?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You can see it in quarterbacks' eyes. You can feel it in the offensive line when things aren't clicking for the offense, as you know. It's a bad feeling. Guys are kind of looking around. They're looking at the clock, waiting for the game to be over with. It's not a good feeling. So you can tell when the quarterback's looking at the D-line and not looking at the receivers trying to make his reads.
Now, also, that battle happens from you guys from a practice standpoint.
Right.
Now, I want the real, man. Blake Bortles, people have crucified him, ripped him apart. When you are on a defensive dominant team, all right? This is the question Jenna wanted to ask you about the quarterback. The relationship that you can maintain with that quarterback without crushing his confidence. How do you do that in Jacksonville?
See, and that's the thing. We try to focus on ourselves. All we want from the offense is 3 points. If not, we'll score on our own. So we don't put any onus on them. At the end of the day, we feel like if we give up a touchdown or we give up points, we lost the game. So we can't put it on Blake. They're going to handle their business. We got to handle our side of the ball.
Quickly on that, does it bother you, some of the crap he's taken, if for lack of a better term, over the course of the year?
You definitely,
he gets hammered a lot.
No, they definitely give him hell, but I mean, at the end of the day, we re-signed him, gave him gave him a good piece of money, and I think he'll be all right next year moving forward, and we'll build off of it last year. I definitely believe.
Knowing that obviously you knew they re-signed him, when you're watching the draft last night, did you think you guys might take Lamar?
Honestly, I mean, honestly, I thought potentially there was a chance that, we may go with a quarterback. You never know what the front office is thinking, but with him being on the board and you seeing him as the best potential player, I mean, you can't help but think, okay, maybe the Jags might pull the trigger on that.
Are the Jacksonville Jaguars the favorite? We see what's going on in New England. They got Tom. They're missing a lot of parts. Last year we left the season. Jacksonville one play away from being in the Super Bowl. Are the Jacksonville Jaguars the favorite in the AFC this year?
I mean, you got to go for the Jags, man. I believe we can do it. We won the South last year. We're trying to double that, and man, we were 6 minutes away. 6 minutes away. So I got to believe in it.
And luckily for the Jags, if something, God forbid, happens to Leonard Fournette, you can step in, right?
Yeah,
you can step in and play running back.
Yeah. No, we got guys like T.J. Yeldon.
Okay, all right. If something happens to a lot of guys.
Right.
You
and
can
they want to give me
people
some
don't know
carries.
you played some running back at UCLA.
Yeah. Once upon a time, I was a running back, and if they want to give me a carry or two, I would love to get a first down or, get in on the goal line and spike the ball. So I would love to do that.
Miles, we thank you so much for hanging out with us.
Thank you for having me.
Great job.
Enjoy New York.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hopefully,
Miles Jack.
Good weather.
Good-looking guy. I got people texting me. Man, that dude look good. That's Miles Jack, people.
Welcome back to First Things First, we're joined by NBA analyst Chris Broussard. Hey, Chris.
Hey, see you, brother. How are you?
Man, always.
Basketball to talk about, just a little. There's actually just a little bit of basketball to talk about last night.
It was a quiet
But it was a
night
big fun night of NBA playoff basketball, which will happen tonight. Big night of kale chips and high-protein yogurt dips at Nick's house, if anyone's going to join us. Let us preview the Thunder
Sounds so awful.
Jazz series, and we'll go outside together and get a Miles.
Black and
Do
mild.
your thing, Jenna.
Game
Jenna
6
style.
in Utah. Thank you very much, Chris. Game 6 in Utah. It's win or go home for the Thunder. They're going to keep looking to get their disappointing season up. Moving along. Westbrook and Paul George carried OKC to victory on Wednesday with a combined 77 points in a 25-point comeback. Chris, what do the Thunder have to do to complete the series comeback?
Well, first, they have to let Russ be Russ. And, I mean, I think they would let him do it, but he has to just play his game. Don't worry about doing anything else. The 2 games they've won in this series, he's been a volume shooter. 25 shots, game 1, 39. I don't want him necessarily taking 39.
But he's going to be in that range.
Yeah, he has to be himself. I think he has to attack the basket, try to get Gobert in foul trouble. It's tough finishing with Gobert in there. If you can get him out of there, that will help him. And he can't fall in love with the 3. Because he's not a good three-point shooter.
No.
He was hot. I think he was just desperate. He's hot in game 5, but that's not his forte. If it's going, great, but otherwise, man, attack the basket, stay in the mid-range. And I think they have to look at it like we got 2 stars, and that's George and Russ. The other guys, you play who's hot.
Yes.
You play what's going well, and that's what they did last game.
So there is no rotation when we start.
If Melo, if it's not working with him in there, then I'm sorry, I got to sit him down.
Well, so Melo was only on the court for around 60 seconds during that enormous run, and it was the beginning of the run. For the entirety of the last 7.5 minutes of the quarter, he's on the bench when they go on that run that saved their season. I said yesterday or day before, whenever it was, that I would consider starting Alex Abrinas in Game 6, your biggest game of the year. I got some pushback from people saying the politics within the league, what that would do for Billy Donovan, if you do that to Carmelo Anthony at this point in the year. I didn't totally understand that criticism, but you are much more connected to the politics within the league. Like, is that a real thing that Billy Donovan's got to consider? How is this going to affect guys wanting to play here? How is this going to affect relationships? Like,
to some extent, I mean, it's somewhat different because, look, Melo, anybody with eyes sees that Melo is not what he used to be.
He's not even half of what he used to be.
Not even close. And that's not even a slight on him. He's in his 15th year. Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh isn't even playing. Like, that. This is not unusual. What's unusual is LeBron, who he probably gets compared to. So, but, yeah, there is some reality to that. But I would not change the lineup. Okay. I would start him, but I'm not going to be hesitant to have a quick leash if I have to get him out of there.
What's the difference? Why?
I think at this point in the series, there's no need to change the starting because you don't know that Alex Abrinas is going to be great.
No, in a game 7. In a game 7,
game 6.
Yeah, game 6.
I mean, go with Melo. I think it's fine to start him, but if it's not working, you go with somebody else.
And more importantly, you don't approach the game with the mentality that we have 3 stars, because you don't. You approach the game with the mentality as you have 1 superstar and 1 awesome number 2 in Paul George.
Like, if George is cold, I'm still riding with him the whole night, right? Because he might get hot. Same with Russ. Not so with Melo, and that's the difference.
Now, Melo has to have the type of attitude in a game like this is whatever I have to do. If it's being a ball handler, if it's playing defense, if it's rebounding, because that's the way they're going to be able to continue this streak, this winning streak, and be able to get back to OKC. But what becomes important, after a 25-point comeback, that first quarter becomes important. If you let Utah, if you let the fans, you let these young players regain their confidence, because it's been a tale kind of 2 different places. They did win the big game there in OKC, but they played tremendous at home. So I just believe those first 12 minutes, we can't forget what happened. We're not even supposed to be playing game 6. But because of that big comeback, I just believe with younger players and that noose begin to choke, if you get into the second half with younger players, they'll start to feel, man, we're going back for game number 7. Something that Russ, he knows personally about. So I believe that the start is very, very important for OKC.
Getting back to Carmelo Anthony for just a second, there was a lot of concern earlier on that he he would be resistant to either coming out of the lineup or not starting or coming off the bench for whatever reason. How has he been with all? I mean, he has to know what his production has been.
He was frustrated yesterday or in Game 5. You know, he got I don't know if argument is too strong, but he was, you know, he and Mo Cheeks, the assistant coach, were kind of going back and forth. Melo said he wanted to be out there, which is fine. But they were rolling without him. And, you know, he conceded.
And wait, you used the word rolling. They had a 25-point comeback. He wasn't in the quarter from almost all of that.
And look, we talked yesterday about James Harden in, what was it, 2015?
Game 6, I think it was 2014, the comeback. It might have been 15. I think it was comeback against the Clippers. They're down 3-1 in the series. Then in Game 6, they're down an enormous amount, 17 points in the fourth quarter. Harden starts the quarter on the bench like he always does. They go on a run. So they just basically leave him on the bench for the bulk of it. I want to get back to something you alluded to, which is it feels to me like Rudy Gobert can be officiated almost any way. Like, because he's such a good shot contester, but he doesn't do it necessarily always with just clean blocks. He does it with the verticality rule. If you have a tight whistle, which is what happened to him in Game 5, you can get him out of the game, and then that is a different basketball team.
Oh, yeah.
They go from having the best rim protector in basketball to nothing there. I don't want to say nothing. That's unfair.
No,
but you're removing
you're
him.
attacking.
You're removing
at will,
arguably, as great as Donovan Mitchell is, you're removing arguably their best player. So something to watch in this game. And if I were OKC, I would challenge him early, even if it means some empty possessions early. I think it'd be worth being down 6 early if you get 2 fouls on him. Like, I would try to get him in foul trouble for the second consecutive game.
No question. And that's a great point because you got to go at him. And as you said, if you get down big, not even as big as they were in Game 5, but you just get down big, you're not coming back in Utah. But if you get up on them, or, you know, those young kids, they haven't been through this. Who in Utah has really been through? At least last year they had a Joe Johnson.
Right.
Like, they're all young, haven't really had a lot of playoff experience, so they got to come out and kind of punch them early.
All right, Chris, thanks. We're going to see you a little bit later on in the show. Coming up, which draft quarterback is ready to make an immediate impact right now? That's next on First Things First. I'm Jenna Wolf, and thank you for listening to the First Things First podcast. Make sure to subscribe and tell your friends, family, and coworkers about the podcast, which, by the way, is available on iTunes and all your favorite podcast apps. You can catch a fresh new episode every Monday through Friday on FS1, starting at 6:30 a.m. Eastern, 3:30 a.m. Pacific. So long, everyone.